So this has really been this year of huge transformation for me. I've changed more as a person this year than I really have in my entire life. And a lot of people that know me really close, family and friends, they've seen this huge change in me. And some of them it's kind of freaked out. They don't even recognize, who I am anymore. And so I thought I would share with you some concepts that I've come to embrace, that have helped change my life for the better, that I've come more into who I really am as a person, that have allowed me to have more sense of happiness in my life and sense of fulfillment, and be able to embark on this new journey. And so up until about a year ago, I found myself always consistently on this emotional roller coaster, where it was I would do things to set myself up for disappointment, and I always kind of felt myself kind of going up the down staircase in the outdoor. And so I started meditating a lot, I started reading a lot, I started mentoring with people that, bigger thought leaders than myself, that were able to teach me some things about myself that I didn't realize. And one of the biggest concepts that I learned about was about our identity and where it actually comes from. So our identity, if you think about it, really comes through social conditioning. Think about Michael Jordan, for example. How do you know him? He's one of the most famous basketball players in the world. And if he was born in China with that exact same DNA, same everything, same family, he might not be that same person today. Or if he was born in the middle of Africa or something like that, or in a totally different setting but had the same DNA, the same parents, then there's a good probability that he probably wouldn't be that superstar basketball player today. And so his identity was formed due to certain conditions of society and what he went through that brought him up to where he was. And so think about, for example, when someone's a little kid, maybe they do a painting of something, and then, somebody says, wow, that's a great tree that, you drew. And then from there on out, that kind of sparks and influences that kid to keep painting, and maybe they become an artist later on down their life. Or maybe the exact opposite. You go to draw something and everybody's like, oh, that's disgusting. What is that? That's not a tree. And then from there on out, you kind of imprint in your mind that you're not a good artist, and that kind of conditions the rest of your life. And so once I started to learn about that and how a lot of who we are is, more of us is not us than really is us. A lot of the careers that we have chosen, our beliefs and our thoughts, and what our concept of what is good and bad and what is normal and what is acceptable all came to us through these ideas of society and how these ideas of what other people imposed upon us. For example, what is success? Success is, in society's eyes, of having, millions of dollars, being super rich, having, driving the Ferrari, having that, a certain type of a girl, and all these materialistic possessions and so forth. And we're always being imposed upon from society that we need more, that we're never enough just as we are. We always got to have the latest gadget, the latest upgraded version of everything, and that we're not enough unless we have this type of thing, unless we look like that type of person in the magazine or something like that. And so once I started to see that from a bird's eye view and started to realize that frame that we've all been put into, I started to get taught and learn about the ego versus self-esteem. So the ego, that self-esteem is what we were born with. That is who we really are. That is, internally it's what we're born with. But the ego, that is developed in time. We're not born with an ego. But all of a sudden, we reach a certain age and we start to get the ability to compare ourselves to other people. Like, oh, she's faster than I am. He's slower than I am. He's not as smart as I am. I'm prettier than him. This person is super popular because they have all these friends and I'm not as popular. And we start to have this ability to compare other people. It's kind of like, for example, if you were in an elevator and there was no buttons, there was no indicators of what floor you were on, you would have no idea, how high you were, how low you were. There would be no comparison of where you were. Now take, for example, that you were in an elevator and it was all glass. Then you could compare yourself to how high you were and how low you were. And that's when the ego starts to begin. Ego comes from comparison, from being able to compare ourselves to a different type of a situation. And so it was interesting because as I started to learn about the ego, I found something really, really interesting happened. I all of a sudden got to this point where I said, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be like, attached to all these things, and I'm going to, live kind of like an ego-free type of a life. But then all of a sudden, what happens sometimes is when we fall into that mentality, say for example, you can see some guy that's like wasted at a bar drinking his blues away, and all of a sudden you think, I'm better than that person because, I've, figured it out and I'm more self-actualized than them. And that's the ego really sneaking in the back door, again, comparing yourself to another person. And it sneaks up on us a lot of times, especially when we think that we're starting to arrive at where we really are. And so once I started to get that in my mind as well, that's when I really started to realize that, you know what, this whole comparison game is just going to continually lead me to disappointment. If I'm comparing myself in a good or a bad way to other people or other situations, then it's not good. And that's why I've come to a point now where I don't even prescribe to the philosophy of having like a bad month in business. It's all a good month. As long as I gained reference experiences and I learned and I grew stronger and I said, all right, I figured out something that doesn't work and this work, and I learned and gained some value from it, then it was a great month. It doesn't matter about the conditions of what society says was a successful month. Only thing that matters is that I learned and that I'm growing into a stronger version of myself. And as I started to do that, and I started to change I reframed my mind from thinking about these emotional attachments to outcome of, monetary type of goals and status goals and comparison of, me versus somebody else and stuff like that. All of a sudden I started having this like consistent feeling of emotional well-being, because it's not about being disappointed if I don't meet this, society standards of goal. It's only about myself and now a lot of times when I set goals now, I set them more based on action rather than some sort of like egotistical outcome of meeting some sort of a quota. A lot of times my goals now will just be based on taking action. Like, all right, do this, and this. With an intention of reaching this goal. I'm not emotionally attached if I reach that goal or not. But what I am actively working towards is taking that action, doing the things that I do have control over, taking necessary action, learning, being aggressive at, taking notes, journaling to learn from my previous month's experiences and so forth, and then moving forward. And as I've started to really let go of emotional attachment to the outcome, some great things have happened. My businesses have started to improve and grow. This month has been the best month that I've had all year long in business. And really, I'm not any happier this month than I was last month or the month before that, because it doesn't matter to me whether this month was a good month or a bad month. My only focus really is just on learning and becoming better and saying, wow, to me, that's the biggest thing that I'm focused on is seeing success in action. Like, wow, you know what, I'm taking these action steps, I'm learning, I'm becoming a stronger version of myself. And the last thought I want to, kind of leave you with in changing identity, imagine, for example, you're at an airport right now and you got a ticket, you could get a free ticket to go anywhere in the world. I mean, you could go to, India, you could go to Germany, you could go to Australia. It doesn't really matter. You could go anywhere. You go to France and go there by yourself. What's kind of exciting about that prospect is that all of a sudden you go there and you could have this totally new identity. Nobody knows your past. They don't know what to judge you from, and you can start over fresh, right? You could act like some crazy comedian or some, outgoing girl, like in Live, Eat, Pray, Love, or whatever that movie was, or something like that, and totally be a different person that you're not back home. And a lot of times that's why people want to move when they go through like a breakup or something like that. They immediately just want to move so that they can just start over fresh. Well, imagine if you could change your identity right now in the same place without having to move somewhere or without having to go on a vacation or something like that, that you could literally just change your identity like that. Well, the truth of the matter is that you can. You can literally just reframe your perception of reality and begin to change your identity immediately. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's also going to be uncomfortable for other people because they know you as this certain type of person. And as you start to do that of which is uncomfortable, people will start to get used to your new identity. It'll just start to become your new identity, and it'll form into that. And all of a sudden, these things that are uncomfortable to you will eventually become comfortable. People will, the things that you thought were scary, it's kind of like playing that same, level 1 video game over and over. You get to the point where it's like so easy, where maybe the first time you played a level 1 video game, on a level 1, it was like really hard. But eventually, as you do it, it gets easier, whatever it is, public speaking, meeting people out in public or whatever. And And so that's, really, I hope these concepts have helped you. Let go of that ego, let go of your emotional attachment to society's standards of what it is that you need to have, and act from within, act from your core, your own core self-esteem, what really feels good to you. Not, a lot of times when I make decisions now, I'll ask myself this question. I'll say, am I doing this because this is me and this is what makes happy, or am I doing this and making this choice because I'm seeking validation, or I'm seeking approval from other people, or I'm seeking a certain type of a reaction from other people? And because of that, it changes a lot of my thought process. So I invite you to maybe start asking yourself as you go to do things. I think a lot of times that's what when messes people up, for example, they start up in a new business, like a business opportunity or whatever it is, and all of a sudden, say for example, they start it and they just fail over and over, and they, in the beginning it just they don't succeed as quickly as they did. Well, all of a sudden they give up and they start to question themselves if what this is, if this is really for them. But what that really is it's just the ego. That's that ego, that comparison of you to society's standards of what you should be measuring up to. Where, for example, the opposite spectrum, say for example you achieve success really fast in it, that can also mess you up sometimes too, because your ego can get caught up with you as well and thinking that you know everything, when really you want to stay into a frame of a kind of a flat line emotional balance, where you don't let your highs get too highs and your lows get too low. You're not emotionally attached to that positive validation or that negative validation, those thumbs up, like or dislike. It really doesn't matter. It's just about expressing yourself with your own art form, doing what is beautiful to you, not hanging up a picture on your wall because of what other people are going to think about it, but hanging up that picture wherever you want to do, no matter what it is, because you think that is beautiful, your own expressive, unique, creative, artistic ability. And as you do that, and if you are finding yourself, in a position where, like I was, that, you can't really understand why, maybe you're achieving success and good things are happening to you, but you still kind of feel depressed, and then it may be because you're not really living out of your core self, and a lot of the real you is hidden down somewhere that should be brought out. So I hope this provided some insight, and if you guys have had a major transformation this year or sometime in your life, and have noticed any correlations to letting go of the ego or letting go of emotional attachment and things like that, please feel free to comment and let me know your thoughts. That's how we all grow stronger together, is by masterminding and sharing our own unique ideas. So I hope you guys are having a great night. I'm ready to go out and have some fun. Talk to you later.